timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot! Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up for the buzzer. Banks it in! Oh! He banks it!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I am here today, no guest, just me. We're going to do a pre-recorded episode. As I mentioned in the previous episode, I am right in the heat of graduate school. I'm about to graduate this summer, so I'm getting into the nitty-gritty. I'm staying busy, and it is hard to correlate schedules with guests whenever you are that busy. But nonetheless, I'm still going to get content out here. I'm still going to get you my thoughts. And I do have some very special guests coming up in the coming weeks, so definitely stay tuned. I will go over those at the end of the show, so definitely stick around, find out who I will be having joining this show in the coming future. But in today's episode, of course, it's a big plate. Obviously, we had the James Harden, Ben Simmons trade, so we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about the Ben Simmons, James Harden press conferences today, the introductory pressers. They both had some very interesting comments on both sides for them. So we'll definitely get into those. I want to get into the Sixers and Celtics preview matchup for tonight. Huge matchup with Boston. As we look at the Eastern Conference standings, this has huge implications. And Boston's been on a hot streak, so we're going to talk about that matchup and look at it, a little bit of the recent action for both of those teams. And then we'll just take a look around the NBA. I wanted to, take a look at our guys, Seth and Drummond, who are now in Brooklyn, and take a look at their debut. And then we'll take a trip around and look at the rest of the NBA and some scores as well. And then also just regarding the Ben Simmons situation, I want to talk about some of these narratives in the national media and how it's becoming ridiculous. So we'll start out with that in the Ben Simmons presser. But before we get to that, definitely some housekeeping here. If you're not already following myself, your host, Scotty, at Scotty Drown. That's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and it's at Scotty Drown right there on the page. You can see it. Make sure you're following me on all social media platforms. I'm always bringing content, hot takes. I don't even know if you want to call them hot. It's just realistic. But definitely follow me on all social media platforms for all my content. And then, of course, my show, Scotty Talks NBA, is presented to you by DSM Media. You can find DSM Media on Twitter at DSM_media. You can find DSM Media on Instagram at DSM.DoSomethingMajor. And you can find DSM Media on TikTok at DSM Media. And, of course, make sure if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube page here, click that subscribe. Just type in DSM Media and it'll pop right up for you. We're bringing content 7 days a week, mostly focused on Philly sports, but we try to cover the spectrum. With that being said, let's get into it today, guys. So as I said, I want to start with the Ben Simmons presser takeaways. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the comments that I took away from the press conference, dive into them a little bit, and then I want to get into some of the recent narratives that has national media just switching up completely from what they originally said. So looking at the Ben Simmons presser today, he started out by saying the decision to not play this season so far was not because of Sixers fans, coaches, or comments. It was because of himself. He was not feeling like himself. It's because of some deeper-rooted problems that he has going on in his life that he didn't want to get into. Says he spoke to Tobias Harris, Doc Rivers, and Daryl Morey on the way out, even Elton Brand, but he did not speak to Joel Embiid. Surprise, surprise. I wonder why they don't like talking to each other. I wonder why they have no interest in having a relationship or friendship at all. He also says the Nets with KD and Kyrie and himself can be pretty scary. I 100% agree with that, Ben. And I think, you add Seth, you add Drummond, a guy like Drummond who adds size to the Nets, which they desperately needed, and Ben Simmons who adds defense, which they desperately needed if he plays. But I promise you the only thing scary coming out of Brooklyn right now is Ben Simmons at the free throw line. So just keep that in mind, Ben, when you talk about scary and fear. He says mental health problems stemmed from far beyond the series against Atlanta. once again, I don't doubt that at all. He had some serious things going on with his family last season that I truly will not speak on. It is not my business to speak on that. And he's happy that the Nets are so welcoming to him, which I bet they are. You know, they have to be. You're on their team, right? Seems like the Sixers were very welcoming when Joel Embiid went out on the home opener against the Brooklyn Nets and told all of the Sixers fans to be supportive of his brother Ben. So if you don't find that supportive, if you don't find the guy in the stands who was trying to help you work on your free throw form in the playoffs, if you don't find that supportive or welcoming, I'm sorry, Ben, but you know, after 5 years of watching you do the same thing, we did turn our backs on you. I will admit that. Excuse me. And then finally, you know, the theme of his press conference was that he wants to get back to being himself, which fair enough. I get it. I've been in situations where, you know, sometimes you just need a fresh start. So that is totally understandable on my part. And, you know, all the uprising today, there's a lot of mental health talk regarding this press conference. One thing I'm not going to do here today or ever is sit here and tell Ben Simmons or tell other people about Ben Simmons' mental health concerns. That's not my place. I don't know what's going on in Ben Simmons' head. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on in Ben Simmons' head right now. If he's having mental concerns, if they are getting better from him moving from Philly to Brooklyn, I can't speak on that. All I'll say is that it is completely ironic how this is all played out, and then 200% more ironic if he goes and he suits up that much quicker for Brooklyn after he is traded. If, for instance, let's say he comes back after the All-Star break, that's a tremendous turnaround from, you know, a guy that was dealing with mental health concerns that pulled him away from $19 million early on in the season. I know it's not about money. It's about mental health and strength. Rightfully so. $19 million is a lot of money to not do your job and play basketball. But like I said, that is not my place. It's just highly ironic, coincidental. But with that being said, I do want to direct my attention to really the real clowns in this situation. And, you know, Ben Simmons, if it comes out and he comes out and says, you know, I really just didn't want to play for Philly. I didn't have mental health issues or mental health concerns. That wasn't why I was sitting out. Then, yeah, I'll call this dude a clown. He's an embarrassment, made a mockery of mental health real people with mental health concerns. As of right now, I'm not going to say that. So as of right now, why are you barking, dude? Sorry about that. My dog had something to say about Ben Simmons. He's a little disgruntled too, but nonetheless, I'm not going to sit here and call Ben Simmons a clown for saying he had mental health concerns and sitting out of a basketball season. Maybe he does. Maybe Philly did put the pressure. Not for me to say. But what I will do is call out the clowns that are switching sides now that, you know, Ben is out of Philadelphia. It's very obvious and apparent how these national media members are just switching sides so completely. And I'll start with Stephen A. Smith because he was more of the older story, I guess you could say, of him switching up since he did it the day that the trade went down. And basically he was saying that this trade was won by Brooklyn, that the Sixers gave up, you know, Seth Curry 2 first-round picks, Andre Drummond. They gave up, you know, Ben Simmons on top of that. Ben Simmons wasn't playing for the Sixers. And I remember very vividly Stephen A. Smith being one of the analysts on the forefronts of ESPN saying that the Sixers are wasting Joel Embiid's prime. They're wasting Joel Embiid's MVP performance right now. They need to get rid of Ben Simmons. They need to trade him at all costs. And then right after they get a Hall of Fame guard in James Harden, a top 15 player in the NBA, probably a top 10 player in the NBA right now, a top 5 shooting guard of all time, James Harden, and you say that's not enough because they gave up Seth and Drummond, 2 role players and some low draft picks. Come on, Stephen A. So, you know, once again, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Stephen A. He puts in a ton of work for ESPN, and he is their guy, right? Like, he is the entertainer. A lot of people just watch ESPN for Stephen A. Smith. So I'm not here to disrespect him, but stop it. with those clown takes. That's a clown take, Stephen A. You need to stay consistent. You need to stay accountable for what you have said in the past. If you want to say that Brooklyn won that trade, that's fine. Just address what you have said in the past and notate it. Say, hey, I made a mistake when I said they should trade him at all costs. They shouldn't trade him for James Harden. If you want to say that, that's fine. Retract your statement, but stay consistent. Acknowledge what you said before. Just shows that you're not even thinking about what you're saying. So the next one, obviously, it doesn't start with Stephen A. Now we got Torrey Smith and Mina Kimes chiming in. So Torrey Smith says here, is it really hard to understand that fans can impact your mental health? Is it really hard to understand that fans can impact your mental health? No, that is not hard to understand, Torrey Smith. And I want to put this out there. Anybody that wasn't on Twitter or that's not on Twitter, there was a series of Torrey Smith tweets that came out this morning, basically challenging anybody that challenges Ben Simmons and his mental health concerns and the ironic situation of him moving from Philly, where he declined to play for half the season, to going to Brooklyn and immediately playing after he's traded. So Torrey Smith felt he had to go out, put his neck on the line, defend Ben Simmons of all people, which is odd as fuck. But nonetheless, he says, is it really hard to understand that fans can impact your mental health? Torrey, to answer your question simply, no, it's not hard to understand that. Mina Kimes chimes in, says, especially now that fans have access to players like never before. I mean, the shit I see on social breaks my brain and heart daily. Can only imagine what it's like to have an audience like him. Ha, ha, ha! Mina, you're so funny. And I have a ton of respect for these two people. Mina Kimes, pioneer to the game. Knows her sports. She knows them. I know it. I watch her all the time on ESPN. I watch her. I respect her. This ain't it. And I'm going to tell you why, because this is inconsistent. You're choosing to come in, rain down on the Philly fans, and that shit ain't right. And she does this often. That's the one gripe I've got with Mina Kimes. She has this thing against Philadelphia, like most analysts on ESPN, where anytime there's a shot to throw at Philadelphia fans, they're going to do it. And she falls right in line with that. That's fine. I get it. It's an agenda that you have to fit in. Once again, a narrative. But stay consistent with the narratives is, once again, all I'm saying here. And, when we're looking in that mirror, we're saying that fans, is it hard for us to understand that we can impact their mental health? You can do that too, Torrey Smith. You impact Ben Simmons' mental health as well when you post tweets that go viral. My tweets don't go viral about Ben Simmons. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a former NFL player. You are. And you have the nerve to come and gatekeep what we say on the internet, how we fan. But this is you. Stay consistent, bro. Hold yourself accountable as you holding these fans. Once again, a lot of respect for Torrey Smith, former Super Bowl champion, brought the first Super Bowl to Philadelphia, my city. Got a lot of respect, but this ain't it, bro. This ain't it. Mina, shout out to the Philly pod for finding this for me. Mina, this ain't it. Ben Simmons is walking to the free throw line like he's being asked to clean his room. But what? Isn't this you? You can only imagine what it's like to have an audience like him? You're the audience! Your tweet went viral. Calling Ben Simmons a grown-up child, a baby. Like he's being asked to clean his room. You're the ones that made this harder on Ben Simmons. National media is acting like they played no hands in the demise of Ben Simmons' reputation in Philadelphia. It's bullshit, man. It's bullshit. All these people on ESPN, ESPN, you're the one that made a mockery of Ben at the ESPYs. You had Anthony Mackie doing stand-up about Ben Simmons at the free throw line. Come on. Come on. This is irresponsible, ESPN. Y'all need to get on the same track. Start deleting your tweets and shit. Either delete your tweets so we can't find this dumb shit, or address it, Mina. Apologize for your tweet. Since you all sentimental defending Ben Simmons, you're so worried about his mental, delete your tweet. And before you delete it, address it. Same with you, Tori. Fans now. We can impact their mental health. We can impact athletes, celebrities, mental health. But national media can too. Their counterparts can too, and they do too, and they do it the most. Let's never get that confused. Never get that confused. A tweet from Torrey Smith saying they gotta trade Ben Simmons, or a tweet from Scotty, right? You guys don't even know my real name. A tweet from Scotty Drown saying trade Ben Simmons. I wonder which one Ben Simmons sees. Scotty Drown making fun of Ben Simmons going to the free throw line, or is it Mina Kimes' tweet that he sees? Keep that same energy. Keep that same energy, Mina. Come on. Hey, look. Old news. Ben Simmons is out of here. We're done talking about Ben Simmons. Straight up. We're done talking about Ben Simmons. We're moving on. We're talking the James Harden trade. Because I just want to give my thoughts on this trade. Obviously, I haven't talked to my listeners intimately since the trade, but I want to give you my thoughts on this trade holistically. So just to start off, what was the actual deal? I'll give it to you in full. Brooklyn Nets received Seth Curry, Ben Simmons, Andre Drummond, 2022 first-round pick, and a 2027 first-round pick. The Sixers received James Harden and Paul Millsap. So before we get into my thoughts, looking at Seth this season, 15.2 points per game, 4 assists per game, 43.7% from three, 48.7% from the field. Seth's having an incredible year. We knew that. We thought people were saying he's having a down year. He's sitting at 43.7% from the three-point line. Give me a break. Seth Curry's a dog. That's my Duke brother. That one hurt the most for me to get rid of. Seth Curry was the one that hurt me the most. Andre Drummond this year, coming off the bench for the Sixers, was averaging 6.2 points per game, 8.8 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, excuse me. So 8.8 rebounds per game. That's exactly what Brooklyn needs. They need defense. They need an interior presence, a big body. Still won't do much when you're going against like the Giannis's, the Joel Embiid's of the world, but nonetheless, it helps you out against those other teams. Let's take a look at Simmons. Oh, that's right. He didn't play this season. Numbers from last season, 14.3 points per game, 7.2 rebounds per game, 6.9 assists per game. He was one of the best, most versatile defenders in the NBA. I'm not going to take that away from him. James Harden this season, 22.5 points per game, 10.2 assists per game, 8 rebounds per game, 41.9% from the field. And then Paul Millsap, 3.4 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, and 1 assist per game this season for the Brooklyn Nets off the bench. Hopefully see him tonight against the Celtics in his debut. Harden we won't see until after the All-Star break. So my thoughts on this trade, and I'll give them to you quick. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We don't know who won this trade yet. We simply don't know who won the trade yet, obviously. It looks great on paper for both sides. But what I will say, the rule of thumb when it comes to trades, and this is true in most sports, the team that gets the best player wins the deal in 99% of deals. Who would you say is the best player in this deal? I won't even give you time to answer. It's James Harden. You don't need to think about it. It's not hard. Now, the only thing that could make this go the other way, because obviously what I'm insinuating here is that the Sixers will end up winning this deal because they got the best player. The only thing that could turn that around is the wild card known as Ben Simmons. If he can come out and not look like the shell of himself that played in that Atlanta series for Philly last year, if he can come out and contribute, shoot like maybe better than 50% from the free throw line, they can be a pretty formidable team that maybe gives them a great chance at a championship. But it would take a huge turnaround from Ben Simmons in order to justify this trade and make it that the Nets won this trade, in my opinion. As far as first round picks, I'm not worried about first round picks when you have James Harden and Joel Embiid on your team. The time is now. It's time to go. I'm sure you all know this. Embiid's prime is now. James Harden's prime is now. Tobias Harris, you could even say his peak, his prime is right now, this age. It's time to go after that ring, and I promise you the first round picks aren't getting you there. And then the caveat to that is, would you have rather traded the first round picks, or would you have rather traded one or both of Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey? Because I promise you Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey are more valuable than any of those picks in the future. So this is all that I'm thinking about. I get everybody's. I think Stephen A was making a huge deal about the draft comp. Like, come on, dude. Come on. I mean, first round picks when you have James Harden and Joel Embiid, this isn't the time to be thinking about that. We needed to get a superstar in here beside Joel Embiid. We needed to get a guy that wants to be here. Get a guy that wants to be in Philly. And we got him in James Harden. We happened to pick up a Paul Millsap as well. The Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, it hurts because those are guys that love Philly. They did want to be here, right? If I was them, I would be pretty heated. You know, Seth Curry, there was rumors that he wanted to, implant his roots in Philly, really wanted his kids to be by their grandfather, Doc Rivers, really wanted to settle down in Philly. And now he's in Brooklyn because of Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons was selfish and forced this whole situation. And then, just looking at Andre Drummond, obviously he wanted to come and play for Coach Doc Rivers, who he has had a connection with for a really long time, and gets traded mid-season. I think what that ultimately says, it speaks to Drummond's, improvements this season and how good he has looked coming off the bench. Because, last season, I don't think Drummond's a guy that you're like forcing back in a trade to get a deal done. I don't think that's something that you were doing last season at the deadline. So the fact that they made it so Andre Drummond had to be in this deal speaks to his improvements this season, which I have to say kudos to Andre Drummond, of course. But tough to lose both of those guys. Played a huge role in the chemistry of this team, rotation. But you get James Harden. And like I said, team that gets the best player wins the trade. And like I said before the trade, whoa, got a phone call there. I apologize. So before, let me go ahead and put my do not disturb on here. Jesus. So, like I said, the team that gets the best player wins the trade. And ultimately, when I look back at what I said before the trade even went down, I would have included Matisse Thybulle in the trade to get him. So just to give you an idea of how much of a success I think this trade was for the Sixers, you don't have to include Thybulle or Tyrese Maxey. That is a win for the Sixers. So definitely want to talk a little bit about the James Harden presser. Because it means a lot at this point, right? Like, we need to know where James Harden is at. If we did just give up 2 first-round draft picks, if we did just give up Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, Ben Simmons even. So just to go over a few takeaways I had from James Harden's presser, Philly was my first choice. It just didn't happen. So he states that in that turmoil in Houston, when he wanted out of Houston, Philly was his first. It was his preferred choice to go to. He didn't have any control of that, so he got shipped to Brooklyn, who Houston felt had the better deal for James Harden. He also went on to say that the Sixers fans are the best fans in the NBA. They're ride or dies. Not going to disagree with you there, James, and I'm happy to hear you say that. Reassuring to my confidence as a Philly fan that we are the best in the world. And I already knew that, but just fulfills my confidence hearing it from James Harden, who hasn't ever played for the Philadelphia franchises before. Can the Sixers win this year? Hell Yeah. He didn't even let the reporter finish the question. Can you win this season with you and Joel Embiid? Hell yes. James Harden is confident that he can win the NBA championship with Joel Embiid and company, and that really gives me confidence. I won't lie to you. He also went on to say he will opt in for next year. I'll take that with a grain of salt. Go ahead and do it, and then we'll talk. He's a huge fan of Maxey's confidence. He loves how confident Maxey is, how much he has improved over the last season. He specifically notated his attacking of the rim as well as the three-point shooting, but specifically mentioned Maxey's confidence, his superior confidence. On Doc Rivers, one of the best coaches to ever coach the game of basketball. Why wouldn't I want to be led by that? Hey, there's been a lot of negativity surrounding Doc Rivers in the city of Philadelphia, a lot of judgment, criticism from myself, respectfully. To hear this from James Harden, it gives me a scope of how NBA players feel around the league. James Harden obviously has a ton of respect for Doc Rivers. He obviously has a ton of respect for Daryl Morey as well. But that bodes huge for the Sixers moving forward. James Harden coming in with respect for Doc Rivers. He even went on to say that even as a player of his caliber, he still has room to grow. He still has learning to do, and he needs somebody that can teach him correctly. That's the type of humble personality that we need from James Harden. That's the version of James Harden that we need. He also mentioned that he can plug in, he can fit in wherever he needs to. He said that he and Joel Embiid, they were asked about the fit of both of them. He said he can do whatever he needs to do to make this team successful. That's all. That's everything I want to hear. The overlying gist of my takeaways from the James Harden presser, A+. He aced his first Philadelphia press conference, and it was exactly what I wanted to hear as a Sixers fan going forward. It gives me supreme confidence. James Harden is going to come in here and do everything that he can. He's committed, and he's going to do everything that he can to bring a ring, a championship to the city of Philadelphia for the 76ers. So now we talked about the Harden presser. Got a couple more photos here. Just some lighthearted stuff, you know, some stuff to warm the heart as Sixers fans. We got him walking in the building. You got the Charles Barkley in the background, two Sixers legends. We got Embiid. We got Tobias, George Niang, Harden, all having a good time at the practice gym. Harden's got his hands up in the air. He's feeling good. Look at him. He loves Philly. Ready to go. Ready to go. So before, obviously I want to get into the game tonight. We talked about the trade enough. There is still basketball to be played. James Harden won't be playing tonight. I did originally. I think we were all under the impression that this may be his debut tonight against Boston. They actually came out, let everybody know they're going to hold him out until after the All-Star break. Rightfully so. I think it's a smart thing to do if that hamstring isn't right, which, once again, it was okay for everybody to question James Harden's injury, right? His hamstring injury. Everybody said he was faking it. But Ben Simmons, you get the protectors to come out and protect Ben Simmons if you question anything about him. That's not my business anymore, though. But James Harden still recovering from that hamstring injury that he was out in Brooklyn with. So he will most likely return on the 25th against the Timberwolves right after the All-Star break. So I'm looking forward to that. But tonight we will I do believe we are getting the Paul Millsap debut in Philly. So we'll see if he gets any playing time, if he, takes away from what Paul Reed's been getting in backup minutes, filling in for Drummond's role. But I wanted to get into a little bit of the recent action, obviously, with the Sixers. Just as far as, looking at this matchup with Boston tonight. So I wanted to touch on their matchup with the Cleveland Cavaliers on Saturday. As you can see, this awesome photo right here. I mean, I'm sure you all have seen the highlight already, and I am working on getting video highlights in here. We're trying to figure out how to get that done without copyright issues. But for now, we got the pictures, and this was one of the, if not the best Embiid dunk that I've ever seen. And it's right over All-Star center, Jared Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So in this game, the Sixers won 103-93. Joel Embiid had 40 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 11 for 22 from the field, 4 for 5 from the three-point line. Incredibly dominant, triple-double. I believe it was the first Sixer triple-double, 40-point triple-double since Wilt Chamberlain. So, yeah, I mean, my goodness, this guy just continues to impress and go beyond your expectations. And just completely destroyed Jared Allen right there. Oh, my goodness. We had Tyrese Maxey with 16 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 for 12 from the field. We had Tobias Harris, 11 points, 5 rebounds, 5 for 10 from the field. Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers, 27 points, 4 rebounds, 11 for 23 from the field, 3 for 6 from the three-point line. We had Jared Allen, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 5 for 9 from the field, and completely destroyed by Joel Embiid. Few takeaways from this game. Obviously, is a huge win for the Sixers. The Cleveland Cavaliers have been playing really good this season. They're a team to watch out for in the playoffs, and they are looking like a team that will be solidified in the playoffs shortly. So definitely an up-and-coming team, and a great W for the Sixers when they're still playing undermanned now. We're waiting on James Harden, which is going to be an integral part of this Sixers team. So huge win undermanned. Some other takeaways. Darius Garland's really, really fucking good. And it was my first time getting to see him at full strength, really, in his own lane. He's an all-star this year. So really getting to see him come to his own and get to watch that in full against the Sixers was great. Cleveland, as good as they are, as young as they are, as potential filled as they are, they stand no chance against a team like Philadelphia in the playoffs. And, I was questioning it. I was a little worried, Jared Allen with a bunch of their other, sizable guys that they got there, Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, Kevin Love. They stand no chance. They have nothing for Joel Embiid. And that's quite obvious after this game. So not too worried if they run into the Cavaliers nonetheless. Now we'll see how the rest of the matchups go the rest of this season, but definitely a good showing by the Sixers in this one. And then the final takeaway, aside from Embiid just being the best player on planet Earth, Maxey gets the second most shots on the team behind Embiid. So he got 12 shots in this game, and Tobias Harris actually only got 10 shots. Usually Tobias Harris is that guy. And it looks like Tyrese Maxey in the last couple games has been getting a bigger workload, which I actually like to see. I think he's, as far as attacking off the dribble, he's the better guy to do it. He's the better scoring option at this point. And that's no shot at Tobias Harris. He just can be effective in other ways. He doesn't always have to go in those one-on-one situations. And some nights it may be best if he's only taking 10 shots. I think it's fine that he acknowledges that and he accepts that, because it's only going to get more common when James Harden arrives and is taking more of those shots away. So great to see Maxey uptick. Great to see Tobias Harris fitting into a role. Although, with guys out, we definitely need Tobias to be a little bit more aggressive there. But it's hard when Embiid's just playing out of his mind like that. But great W for the Sixers, 103-93 over the Cavs. The next thing I wanted to touch on, obviously, they play the Celtics tonight. The Celtics are coming off a 105-95 win against the Atlanta Hawks on Sunday. Jason Tatum in this game had 38 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. He was 13 for 27 from the field, 4 for 10 from the three-point line. Jaylen Brown, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 6 for 16 from the field, 2 for 6 from the three-point line. Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks had 30 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds, 9 for 26 from the field, 4 for 12 from the three-point line. And then, of course, Bogdanović had 26 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 9 for 20 from the field, 3 for 10 from the three-point line. So a big win for the Boston Celtics, 105-95 over the Atlanta Hawks coming into this game with the Sixers. Just to give a little bit of a preview when we're talking about the Sixers and the Celtics here, just give an idea of what these teams are looking like coming into this game. So I mentioned the Celtics are coming off a win over the Hawks. Celtics have actually reeled off 8 wins in a row. So they have won 8 straight games coming into this game tonight against the Sixers. They're 9-1 in their last 10. Boston Celtics are 2 games back of Philly. They're currently at the 6th seed. Philly is actually 2.5 games back of the 1 seed. Philly's currently at the 4th seed, and Philly is 7-3 in their last 10. And as I mentioned, this will hopefully be the first game with Paul Millsap back, but we will not see James Harden. Just to give an idea of some of the performances the Sixers have had, just as far as how they've played against the Celtics this season. Looking at Joel Embiid, 3 games played against the Celtics, 26.3 points per game, 13.7 rebounds per game, 5.7 assists per game, 1.7 steals per game, 2.7 blocks per game, 40.7% from the field, 26.7% from the three, and a plus minus of plus 15. So nonetheless, Joel Embiid is doing everything against Boston. It's not the most efficient version of Joel Embiid, which you hopefully get to see a different version tonight. Hopefully still the same dominating presence, but just a little more efficient. But nonetheless, he has dominated Boston this year. You see the plus minus of 15. And he just looks to continue that tonight. Hopefully an uptick in efficiency for Embiid. Maxey versus Boston this year. He's only played against Boston in 2 of the matchups. 14.5 points, 3 assists per game, 37.9 field goal percentage, but 55.6% from the 3-point. And he has a plus minus of -3 in the 2 matchups with Boston that he's played in. So definitely looking for Tyrese Maxey to have a better showing against Boston. Looks like he seems to struggle against him this year. For his standard, I should say. Tobias Harris in 3 games against Boston this year, 16.7 points per game, 7.3 rebounds per game, 46.2% from the field, 30.8% from the 3-point line, and a plus minus of +7. So once again, Tobias Harris is sitting right around his average numbers there. You would like to see an uptick in the efficiency, of course, but they're going to need more from him tonight than what they got in that last matchup with Cleveland. So looking for something from Tobias. Looking at it from the Boston perspective, we have Tatum, who's played in 3 games against Philly this year, 21 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 41.2% from the field, 27.8% from the 3, plus minus of -4. Jaylen Brown, 3 games played against Philadelphia, 20 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists per game, 37.3% from the field, 27.3% from 3-point line, and a plus minus of -14. So Jaylen Brown has not looked great against Philly. Tatum has not shot the ball well at all against Philly. Neither of them have, to be specific, both of them under 30% from the 3 against Philly in the season matchup, where they are 1-2 on the season. Definitely don't expect that from them tonight. Tatum's been on fire, and Jaylen Brown is as dangerous as anyone. So I doubt that will continue to be the norm for Boston against Philly. But nonetheless, they have not shot the ball well. And maybe that speaks to some of Matisse Thybulle's defense this season. So we'll see if that can continue on tonight. Some of my keys for this game tonight: make anyone but Tatum and Jaylen Brown beat you. Obviously, they got Marcus Smart. They picked up Derek White at the trade deadline. They got other guys. Make those other guys beat you. It can't be Jaylen Brown. It can't be Jason Tatum going for 40. That can't happen tonight. The Sixers must win the bench minutes. Cork, Shake, George Niang, these guys are going to be huge. Paul Reed, I mentioned. We'll see if Paul Millsap will contribute. But nonetheless, the Sixers need to win these bench minutes. As I mentioned, James Harden is not playing tonight, so they are down one of their big pieces moving forward. So got to get some extra help from the bench. Need Cork to bounce back. Shake has looked decent since coming back, and George Niang just need to keep it going from him. Maxey needs to attack. He needs to attack the lane. He needs to force the issue. Get these guys get to the free throw line. Get a rhythm going early in this game. I definitely want to see him have a big game against Boston tonight. Tobias Harris, don't disappear. I have that marked down here. Sometimes he just falls in line, allows Joel Embiid to do his thing. Rightfully so. Joel Embiid's the leader of this team. He's the best player on the team. But sometimes he needs help. You need to recognize when that's the case, and you need to be there, Tobias. Do not disappear. And then, of course, the MVP, Joel Embiid. Just need another dominating performance from him. It's unfortunate that that's what it takes on a night-to-night basis until James Harden gets here. But it's just that. It's what it's going to take. And I think he's more than built for it this year. He showed that. Prediction: I have a Sixers win tonight, although I know it is more than realistic that they could lose this game. Celtics are hot. Sixers, as I mentioned, made a big trade. They're down a few guys. No James Harden. So I'm picking the Sixers, but it's a very lighthearted. I'm not going to go guaranteeing a win against Boston tonight. I got Sixers 107-95. I think they keep it low scoring. It's going to need to be a defensive battle. But as I mentioned, the Sixers bench has to make some noise tonight. They got to make some moves and really, really set the tone for that Sixers team in order to get ahead in this game. But nonetheless, I got a Sixers W. Let's keep the good vibes going. We got Milwaukee on Thursday, so that's going to be another huge test before the All-Star break. And then, of course, hopefully we get James Harden back after the All-Star break, and we really get to see this team at full potential. Nonetheless, I want to finish up here, trip around the NBA. Before doing so, just wanted to mention, I realized I glossed over it earlier. 3 things that I'm looking for once James Harden does return to the Sixers. Starting lineup, what does that look like? The defensive matchups, what do they look like? You're talking about Danny Green, Matisse Thybulle in those starting lineups. Who does James Harden guard? Who does Danny Green down the line? Tyrese Maxey, who do they guard? Does Tyrese Maxey start? Should he come in and man the second unit? Can they stagger him with the second unit? A lot of different options there. I'm interested to see how that plays out. Following up with Maxey, the Maxey and Harden backcourt. I want to see what that looks like because on paper it looks really dynamic. These are 2 contrasting players and player types, and I think they could really balance each other out in that backcourt there. And then the other thing that I'm keeping my eye on, and it's not necessarily a negative or a positive, regardless of which way it goes, but I want to see if Joel Embiid remains at this MVP caliber and what that looks like once James Harden is implemented in this team and in this offense. I want to see what Joel Embiid looks like beside Harden, and I want to see if that is still an MVP caliber statistical presence. So we will definitely see that very early on in this relationship, how that will play out. But those are just a few things that I'm looking forward to once James Harden joins this team. Looking around the NBA, just a quick glance. I definitely wanted to touch on Seth Curry and Andre Drummond's debut for the Brooklyn Nets last night. So they got a 109-85 win over the Sacramento Kings. That win snapped the Brooklyn Nets' 11-game losing streak. Seth Curry with 23 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 10 for 18 from the field, 3 for 8 from the three-point line. Andre Drummond, 11 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 for 7 from the field. So those guys, first game in, they're already making a positive impact, and I did not expect anything less. As I've said on previous shows, Seth Curry, he's a shooter. You're going to use him on every team. He fits in on every team. He can score the basketball. It's a commodity in the NBA. Andre Drummond, once again, he's a guy that can fit on any team. Rebounding, big body, defensive presence, something that the Nets were severely lacking. So that's going to fill a big void for them. No surprises there, but nonetheless, big win for the Brooklyn Nets. Big game for Seth Curry there with 23 points. DeMar DeRozan, my God, this guy's on fire, and he has been all season. The Bulls stay afloat. He continues his stellar play. He's averaging 35.6 points per game in the month of February so far, and 40 points in the win over the Spurs last night. He just keeps it going. I believe he had 45 against the Sixers a week or so ago. Moving out to OKC, we had Josh Giddey, the rookie, with a triple-double. He had 28 points, 12 assists, 11 rebounds in a win over the New York Knicks. Josh Giddey, man, this guy is talented. I really like his game, and it's going to be interesting to see how he can fill out and start to really build his role for OKC there. See how that fits beside SGA, Dort, and all the guys they got there, the young talent they got going on in OKC. In Cleveland, I mentioned Jared Allen earlier. I mentioned he's an all-star. He is the one replacing James Harden in the all-star game. As I mentioned, James Harden is going to be out through the all-star break, should return afterwards, but he will not be part of the all-star game. Jared Allen takes his spot. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves, they went ahead and extended Patrick Beverley for a year, so they add some veteran depth to their point guard rotation to keep that core together. And they're building some positive vibes there in Minnesota this season. So good to see them holding on to Patrick Beverley, who brings a significant type of culture to them, which I actually enjoy. So nonetheless, that's a trip around the NBA, a little bit of what's going on in the league right now. So definitely keep your eye. Big slate tonight, I'm sure. Tuesday night basketball is always fun. Before I get out of here tonight, guys, thank you once again for tuning in. Always want to share my thoughts and thanks to all my listeners, my gratitude. I appreciate you all. It's all love. With that being said, keep an eye out over the next few weeks. As I said, I'm going to have guests coming on the show again. I know the last 2 episodes have been solo. I don't know if you enjoy that or not. Definitely let me know in the comments if you do, because I do enjoy in this type of setting. I get to give my full full thoughts, uninterrupted, right? So, when you're talking with somebody, you let them get their thought off. You forget a thought. It's not like that when you're by yourself. You get it all out there. You get to say what's on your mind. And that is something I like about this. But I also understand I need to get other people's point of views in my shows as well. So I will keep the guests coming. I got Austin Krell lined up for next week from the Painted Lions, also Sixers Wire. So he's a beat reporter for the Sixers. Got him coming on next Tuesday. And then in the very short future, I have Zach Noble from Ball is Life joining me, as well as Greg Melly, who also covers the Sixers. So very, very fun guests in the future, and more will be to come. Before I get out of here, definitely want to shout out our sponsors over at Manscaped. Guys, if you're not taking care of your nuts, I know Valentine's Day just passed. Your girls, your significant others, they want to see you take care of your genitals, take care of yourself. It's a sign of a respectable, highly accountable man. Head over to Manscaped, use code DSM to get 20% off and free shipping on manscaped.com. That's code DSM on manscaped.com. Get you 20% off and free shipping on anything on manscaped.com. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, fellas. Your significant other will truly, truly appreciate it. But make sure you're using that code. Make sure you let them know that DSM sent you. As well as other housekeeping, make sure you're following DSM Media at DSM_media on Twitter, at DSM.DoSomethingMajor on Instagram, and at DSM Media on TikTok. And for myself, you can find me at Scotty Drowned on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. It's the same on all of them. So make sure you're giving me a follow. It's definitely appreciated. But for myself, for DSM Media, that is going to be it for this episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I appreciate the hell out of all of you. Go Sixers, and I cannot wait to see James Harden suit up for them Sixers.